let's talk about what we're going to be covering in today's webinar. Now, first, we're going to talk about which subscription is right for you when we're talking about QuickBooks Online Payroll. There are two different options. We'll talk about which one is good for you. Number two, set up payroll from the very beginning. We are going to run through and set up all of our employees. Then we're going to talk about setting up taxes. Eventually, we will pay our employees, pay our taxes, and also file our taxes and pay non-tax liabilities like health insurance. Number three, we're going to pay our employees. We're going to pay and file our taxes, like I mentioned earlier. And then finally, we're going to do our non-tax liabilities and other tricky scenarios. So we're going to go through all of these different things that are necessary when fully understanding QuickBooks Online Payroll. And of course, we're also here to answer your questions. Now, the very first thing that I want to address is why it's important to actually have a payroll service from a business standpoint and from a small business owner standpoint. Now, one of the things that a payroll service helps you to do is minimize the possibility of mistakes. And about 40% of small businesses are fined for payroll mistakes. The average fine is almost $1,000. $945 is the average fine. So by using a payroll service, QuickBooks Online is going to calculate all of the withholdings for your employees and also calculate the amount of deposits that need to be made and when they need to be made, essentially reminding you when that needs to be happening. Or if you're using the full service option, it will automatically make those payments and those tax filings for you. So it reduces the possibility of mistakes and errors that lead to fines. Now, whenever you're talking about signing up for a payroll subscription with QuickBooks Online, there are two options. And we're going to talk a little bit about both of these. We're going to be covering specifically the one on the left, which is going to be enhanced payroll. And in this one, we're going to be doing all the things that are shown on the left right there, like paying our employees through check, direct deposit. We've got free 24-hour direct deposit. And we've got the ability to process payroll through an app on mobile devices. There's also the full service payroll option over here, which does everything that the enhanced version does, but it automates the payment for your taxes. It also automates the form filing for your taxes. And it also has same-day direct deposit processing. So it can do those direct deposits a little bit faster than the enhanced version. Now, let's talk about the forms that you should have on hand whenever you're signing up for QBO Payroll. Now, there are a couple of things that are good to have around just to make the process a little bit easier on you as you get started. First of all, you want to have all of the W-4s that your employees have filled out. And if you don't already have any W-4s, you can get those from the IRS's website. They're free. You can also get them from inside QuickBooks Online. You can actually print them out directly from QBO. And W-4s just have basic information about an employee's tax information, like their social security number, their address, their filing status, things like that. We also recommend that you have your year-to-date payroll information on hand. And by that, I mean summaries of all of the money that you've paid your W-2 employees so far this year. And it's important to have that on hand because there is a step in the sign-up process in which you're able to tell QuickBooks about how much you paid your employees so far this year. That way, next year, whenever you create W-2s at the beginning of the year, you'll be able to have an entire year's picture of that employee's payroll on that W-2. Number three, we recommend having any identifying numbers that have been assigned to your business from federal and state authorities. So federal EIN, and usually states will also issue a state ID. And if you have those on hand, it makes the sign-up process a lot faster too, because there is a step whenever you're filling out tax information, it's going to ask for those IDs. Otherwise, you'll have to fill them in later on. Number four, state unemployment insurance rate. This is a rate that is assigned to you by your state based on a variety of factors, one of which being how many recent employees you have that have been drawing unemployment. And so this is something that's going to be issued to you by your state either yearly or quarterly, and it's good to have that on hand too. And I'll show you not only how you can enter that, but also how you can change it later on if that rate changes. And also number five, have your and your employees' account and routing numbers for their bank accounts if they use direct deposit. Because there is a step in this process in which you can input their direct deposit information and also the information for your business. So those are the important forms to have on hand as you go through this. Having them here with you whenever you're first signing up for QBO's payroll is going to make things a lot faster for you. Now, I already have a company started right here. And to get started with QBO payroll, all you have to do is put your mouse over workers, and you're going to have two little pop-outs come out. Now, when we're talking about payroll, we're talking very specifically about W-2 employees. If you are wanting to enter people that you eventually, or businesses that you eventually issue a 1099 to, those are considered to be contractors, not employees. You do not have to have payroll or a payroll subscription to create 1099s or to issue them payments or anything like that. In order for you to sign up or in order for you to enter contractors, all you have to do is click on the contractors link right here. And then from this page, you can then click on add your first contractor and essentially just enter their name, their email address, and QuickBooks will actually send them an email to fill out their own personal information. They can fill out their address by themselves, they can fill out their social security numbers or business ID by themselves, or you could uncheck this box and then click add contractor and you can fill out their information as well. So that's one option for you to enter your contractors right through here. You can also enter them from the vendors screen as well. So either way, you can set up those contractors. Now, again, if we're talking about payroll though, we're talking very specifically about W-2 employees, people that we're going to issue a W-2 at the beginning of the year or two every year. So we're going to go ahead and get started right here. So now it's going to ask us, have we paid any W-2s, any W-2 employees so far this year? So I'll just choose yes. And right here, it's going to ask me, are we going to run our payroll before the beginning of the next year or on or after the beginning of the next year? Now, the reason why it needs this information is because of a form called the 941. Now, the 941 is a quarterly tax filing. And QuickBooks essentially just needs to know, hey, do we need to know of any information that's being entered this quarter that needs to be included on that 941, which is essentially before 1/1/2019. Anything on or after, they don't need to track for this current quarter. So that's the only reason that it's asking that. We're going to go ahead and say that we're going to run payroll before the beginning of next year. And then down here, how did you pay your employees? With paychecks or with lump sum payments? Now, paychecks are normal paychecks that you issue to employees that have withholdings on them. So you've withheld some of the money that gets paid out to employees in order to make tax deposits later on. That's what a paycheck is. A lump sum payment is just a payment towards someone without any taxes taken out. Usually lump sum payments are the payments that are made to contractors. So you might want to consider whether or not they should even be set up on the employees list to begin with if you have actually issued them lump sum payments. But there are some situations in which you may have issued lump sum payments to regular W-2 employees as well. We're going to go ahead and go with paychecks and then click on continue. Now in this next step, we're going to start telling QuickBooks about our employees. So I'll click on add an employee right here. And this setup process is 6 steps long. It walks you through everything that you need to enter for your employees. Now, our first employee is going to be, let's see here, we're going to enter Robert England as our first employee. I just typed his name in right there. And then the first step is to enter Robert's W-4 form. These are W-4 forms that are filled out by your employees and basically just have to fill out the same information on this screen that they fill out on those forms. So right now I'm going to go ahead and enter Robert's address, which is going to be 1428 Elm Street, right there. And our business is in Dallas, Texas. Okay, we've got that filled out. And then we'll also enter his social security number. Let's see here, get that filled out too. Very good. Now, Robert's single. And also right here, we have total number of allowances that they're claiming. That's going to be indicated on their W-4, so just put in the same number that they filled out. And then right here, we also have any additional withholding. So if they've elected to have any extra money taken out per paycheck, you can include that information right here too. Now, for most states, you're also going to see some state tax withholding information down here. So it could be that you also need to indicate their filing status for that particular state too. We also have potentially some tax exemptions. These are extremely rare. Whenever we're talking about tax exemptions, this is usually for religious organizations, and also potentially if the company is employing foreign government officials. So not very common at all. I'm going to go ahead and click on Done here. And then number 2, we have to set up our pay schedule. Now, a pay schedule tells QuickBooks when payroll needs to be run, and also what days need to be included whenever the payroll is actually run. So essentially, you're going to be telling QuickBooks the days that you're going to be paying your employees, and also what days are going to be included in each one of those different paychecks. So by clicking on this, we have a couple of different options. And you only have to do this once per pay schedule. Most businesses only have one pay schedule. If you have multiple, that's fine. You can set up as many as you like, but usually you have to do this once. Right here we have, how often do you pay Robert? We can pay Robert every other week, twice a month, or every month. And depending upon your selection right here, you're then going to get some more options down here. So with every week selected, we then have when's the next payday, when's the last day of work or pay period for that payday, what do you want to name this pay schedule? Some pretty basic functions. But if we choose something like twice a month, we can then click on custom schedule, and we can get very specific about the first payday of the month, when we want that to be, the second payday of the month, when we want that to be, when we want these different pay periods to end. So you can get very, very specific about these pay schedules. We're going to go with every week, and QuickBooks assumes that you want to run payroll on the very next Friday. That's what it's always going to select right here, when's the next payday. But if you click on this field, you can change it to whatever day you want to. Now, by default, also, the last day of work for that payday is assumed to be 2 days before the payday. And that's usually the best experience that you're going to have, because it's not that great for people to turn in their timesheets and wait until the end of the day to turn those timesheets and also get their paychecks. Usually it's good to have those timesheets turned in a couple of days in advance. That way you know exactly what information to fill out on payroll as you enter it. So right here we have the name of the pay schedule. Usually you won't have to change that. QuickBooks assigns a name for you. And then over here on the right-hand side, we also see a projection of the next 4 payrolls. And you can set this up as the default. That way, whenever you're entering more employees later on, they'll all get the same payroll. But you can always change it on a whim if you really need to. We'll click on Done here. And then we'll move on into step 3, which is how much we pay our employees. So this can be hourly, salary, or commission only. And if you choose salary, you can also choose between different types of salary. We've got yearly, monthly, and weekly. And then there's also commission only, which essentially you'll just be filling it out whenever you actually run payroll. You'll just enter the amount of money you're going to pay them for that paycheck. We're going to go with hourly. We're going to say that Robert earns $20 an hour. And then, of course, we have other additional pay types, things like overtime, double overtime. We got vacation, sick leave. That's going to be all available in the add additional pay types. Now, right here, not only can you have one rate, which is the default, but you can have additional rates as well. Like right here, we have hourly too. If Robert makes a different amount of money doing something different for our business, we can just turn this on, enter the different rate. Maybe we have Robert do some gardening, and he gets paid at a different rate when he does gardening. Maybe he gets paid $25 an hour. We'll enter $25 right there. Click on the little pencil, and you can change the name of this to gardening. And that way, whenever you're running payroll, you'll be able to choose between regular hours or gardening hours. And QuickBooks automatically knows how much money to pay Robert based upon what you've entered. You can also pay Robert with overtime pay, double overtime pay, sick pay, vacation pay, holiday pay, bonus. You can enter commissions. You can turn on commissions. You can rename commissions. Just click on the little pencil right there. And then we also have even more ways to pay Robert. There's all these different things you can turn on, and also other earnings. If you don't find the thing that you're looking for here, just click this, and you can enter your own by clicking the little pencil. Right here, you can name that whatever you like. And you can have up to 8 of these different unique earnings items. So lots of space for you to get very specific and very detailed for your own business. So right up here at the top, I'm going to go ahead and turn on overtime pay. And QuickBooks knows that that's time and a half. And then also I'll turn on sick pay and vacation pay. Now, sick pay and vacation pay are identical. They work in exactly the same way. The only difference is the name that's assigned to them, sick pay versus vacation pay. Now, if you're in a business that only has one or the other, just indicate which one you have. And if you're a business that has all of it wrapped up as PTO, paid time off, I generally recommend that you just use the one vacation pay and use that for your PTO. Now, both for sick and vacation, you're able to choose how the hours are accrued. We've got at the beginning of the year, each pay period per hour worked on an anniversary date, the anniversary date being the date of the employee's hire. And you can also choose per hour worked right here. Notice that it says hours per year for at the beginning of the year, each pay period on an anniversary date. Well, if you switch to per hours worked, it then changes it to Robert earns blank hours per hour worked. So we'll go with at the beginning of the year. We're going to say that Robert earns 80 hours at the beginning of every year. We got maximum allowed. So what do we want to put a cap on the number of hours that an employee can accrue? It basically sets up like a use it or lose it policy for the business. We're going to go ahead and say that we've got the maximum of 80 hours. They can't go over that. Click OK. And then if the employee has any in their current balance, you can also include that right here. So some hours they already have. Robert's been saving up for some vacation at the end of the year, so we're going to put 40 in there. Now there's also holiday pay, which is a little bit confusing because we've got vacation pay right here. So what's the difference between vacation and holiday pay? Well, holiday pay are days that employee doesn't have to work or is paid for to take the day off, like Christmas, Thanksgiving, Labor Day, things like that. Now, QuickBooks doesn't make any assumptions about which days those might be. It has no idea when the holidays are. It relies upon you to eventually, whenever you're running payroll, to indicate how many hours that employee got for holidays. So it's still completely malleable, something you can change on a whim. I'm going to click on Done here, and that sets up the pay for our employee. Number 4, we've got deductions, contributions, and this is also where garnishments are. So I'm going to click on the little pencil right here to set these up. Now, deductions, contributions, and garnishments are both set up through this window. They're both set up through the same process. I'm just going to go through setting up a deduction or contribution. Now, right here, we've got different types of deductions and contributions: retirement plans, health insurance, HSC plans, other deductions, flexible spending accounts. Your choice here is important because it sets up various different tax IDs behind the scenes, letting QuickBooks know whether this deduction or contribution needs to be made before taxes or after taxes. Like with a 401k, it's taken out before taxes, and with a lot of health insurance, it can be taken out after. So this is important, but it's pretty broad categories. You'll generally know what you're going to be setting up. We're going to go ahead and set up a health insurance plan. And we're going to say that this health insurance is going to be medical insurance. We're going to call this Good Health Insurance. That's the name of the provider. And that's also what's going to eventually appear on the paycheck for the employees. Right here, we have the employee deduction and company paid contribution. So for this, we can choose a dollar amount, percentage gross pay, or none. Usually percentage of gross pay is reserved for retirement plans like 401ks, but you can use them if needed. And then over here, we also have company paid contributions. That's going to be a dollar amount, percentage of gross pay, or none. Percentage of gross pay, again, usually used in this case for situations where you're setting up a retirement plan like a 401k and the business has some sort of a company matching program. But for us, we're just going to say that $50 are deducted from the employee's pay every time they're paid. And then there's also potentially an annual maximum that you can include too. We don't really have one for this health insurance. Now down here towards the bottom, you may not see these questions on all of the deductions contributions that you set up, because QuickBooks is going to know the tax information for a lot of these by default. But with medical insurance, it could be taxable or pre-tax. So we have to tell QuickBooks whether this money is coming out before taxes are assessed or after. Now, usually these are taxable insurance premiums when we're talking about medical insurance. But if you have a cafeteria style plan or something like that, you can set it up as being pre-tax too. If you don't know, you can contact your plan administrator to help you out. Now, I'm going to go ahead and click on OK. You can continue setting up as many of these as you need. Just click on Add a New Deduction, and you can set up more. You can also apply the same deduction or contribution to future employees too once you've set it up. Now, number 5, how do you want to pay Robert? Now, by default, QuickBooks assumes that you want to pay your employees by direct deposit. Direct deposit through QuickBooks Online comes at no additional cost. It's just wrapped up in the normal subscription. Now, you can enter the employee's routing number, account number, confirm the account number right here. You can also choose direct deposit to 2 accounts, like a checking and a savings account. We've got direct deposit with balance in the check or paper check. So lots of great options right now. I don't have any routing number or account number to set up for this employee because, spoiler alert, this person is not really an employee. I'm setting up a fake employee just for demonstration purposes. Now, paying employee, regardless of whether you're paying them through direct deposit or a paper check, is done through the same screens in the same exact way. So there's not going to be any difference between any of these in terms of the mechanics of paying employees later on. So I'm just going to choose paper check right here. Now, there are some specifics about paper checks that I'll explain later on, because if you actually want QuickBooks to print paper checks out for you, which it can do, there are some additional settings that need to be looked at. But we'll look at that whenever we get to it. Number 6, enter 2018 prior pay details. Earlier, we talked about documents that we need whenever we're setting up QBO payroll. This is a big one. Having that year-to-date information on hand as you go through this process is going to be a big help because of this button. Now, this is the only chance that you have to set up an employee's prior pay details. Basically, QuickBooks just wants to know, hey, how much have you paid this employee so far this year? Whenever I click on this, it takes me into a screen that asks me, have you paid Robert between January 1st and September 30th? Yes. And did you pay Robert on or after October 1st? It needs to know the difference between those two things because of those 941 quarterly filings. It needs to know how much has taken place this quarter versus the rest of the year. And so as we scroll down here, you get 2 different columns. One for totals as of today, one for totals as of September 30th. Now you can get this information from Paystub, so the latest Paystub that you've issued to your employees, or if you're switching over from a different service, you can also run payroll reports through that service and get the same information. And this is really important because this is the only time where you're going to be given the chance to enter this. After you finish the payroll setup process, there's no way to get back to this screen. The only way to enter this after you've set up payroll is to call up payroll support and have them fix it for you behind the scenes. So getting it done now is going to be a lot faster and a lot easier. And it's also important to mention that if you're going with full service, the Intuit full service payroll, they will enter all of this information for you. So you're not going to have to pull it out yourself. Now, for us, I'm going to go ahead and turn both of these off because I want to show you the warning message that you get later on if you don't enter this information, which is really important. Now, after you've set up all this information about your employees, it's then going to give you a projected payroll check over here based upon the number of hours of the payroll schedule and also the amount that they're being paid for the wages that you've entered in step 3. Now I'm going to go ahead and click on Done. Continue to enter your employees right here. Just click Add an Employee. Continue adding them all in as you need to. Once you're done, click on Continue. And here's a big warning message. Now, this is telling us that we need to go back and enter that year-to-date information for the employee. So this is how important it is. It's going to give you this little pop-up window. I'm going to go ahead and say that we don't need to do that, so I'll select it. Now, it's going to ask us, do you have W-4 forms filled out by your employees? We do, but you can get more. You can print out W-4 forms directly from QuickBooks if you need to. Just click on the W-4 forms, and it'll take you to a place where you can print them out. Now, in the next screen, it's actually going to ask if you want to run payroll right away. We don't. We're going to come back to the screen in a little bit. But notice that we have the bank account up here. There's the pay period, pay date, and all of these different fields where we can enter how many hours an employee worked or is being paid for this payroll. But we're not going to do this just yet, so I'm going to click on Cancel. Now we've set up our employees. Next, we need to set up our own company information for tax purposes. So we're going to find that by going over to Taxes and then Payroll Tax. Now in this screen, we're going to go ahead and continue to tax setup. And from here, it's going to ask me information about the employee's birth date, hire date, gender, and also if there's any W-4 errors, it'll give you a little exclamation mark right here to enter too. Now we're going to go ahead and enter Robert's birthday and also hire date. And then we are all done on this screen. So I'll go over to continue. Now in this first screen, it's going to ask us just some basic information about our business, like what's our official filing name, what is our filing address. This is just going to go by your business address that's already filled out in the company settings. It also reiterates this question: will you be running payroll before the next quarter or after the next quarter? And also, did you hire your first employee within the last 6 months? Just answer appropriately for these questions and you're good to go. Now down here, it's going to give us some information about workers' comp. Now I do have to mention that workers' comp is required in 49 U.S. states. So it's pretty important to get workers' comp filled out properly. And it can be automatically paid when you run payroll if you get workers' comp through Intuit's partner right here, which is AP Antigua. So it's a good idea to get a quote. That way you'll be able to potentially pay this directly through QuickBooks when you pay your employees and taxes and everything else. Now in the next screen, it's then going to ask us for our federal tax information. We're going to enter our federal EIN number right here, and then also which payroll tax form you file with the IRS, whether you file quarterly or with a 944 form once a year. It's going to be one or the other. Most businesses file a 941 every quarter, in addition to other forms like the 940 every year and W-2s for all their employees every year too. Now, how often does the IRS require you to pay federal taxes? So we're talking about the withholdings that you take out from employees' paychecks. You have to pay those to the government on a regular basis, and this is assigned to you. You're either going to be paying these semi-weekly, so after each payroll, on the 15th of every month, at the end of each quarter. So we've got all these different options. We pay ours monthly on the 15th of every month. And then it also asks you if your business is a nonprofit. Ours is not. Now in this next screen, we're then going to see state tax details. This is going to vary greatly based upon your state. In Texas, we don't have any state income tax, but we still have plenty of other taxes like the state unemployment insurance rate right here. Now, this is one of the only tax rates that QuickBooks doesn't know about by default. QuickBooks regularly downloads tax tables, so it always has the most recent rules regarding taxes and tax percentages and things like that. But for this is a number that is assigned to your business. So there's no way for QuickBooks to know this unless you put it in. This is something that's sent to you, it's given to you by your state. All you have to do is click on yes and then enter that rate right here. And usually this is going to be based upon a variety of factors, but one of them being how many people are drawing from the unemployment that used to work for your business. We've also got other taxes that are listed down here. These are going to vary by state again, and you can choose your options as you see them. Click on Save, and here it's going to ask us how we want to file and pay our taxes. Now, if you're using full service payroll, QuickBooks Online automatically pays and files your taxes for you, so you won't have to do anything else. With enhanced payroll, QuickBooks still calculates your taxes, but you have to click a couple of extra buttons and go through there and enter it manually. So there's a little bit more of a chance that you could potentially make a late payment or something like that. But QuickBooks Online is still going to send you emails letting you know when these transactions need to happen, when these forms need to be filed, regardless of which version you're using. Now, also regardless of which version you're using, it's going to ask us how you actually want to file them. ePay and eFile is definitely recommended. It allows you to pay your taxes and file your taxes directly through QuickBooks. So you don't have to go to the EFTPS website separately and pay it through there. And also you don't have to do any manual filings with tax forms by sending them through the mail this way. Now, I'm not able to completely show you every step of this process because we actually used to show every step of this process, but the IRS, and this is completely serious, the IRS actually asked us to stop setting up a whole bunch of fake businesses and sending them information that was inaccurate. So we complied because that's kind of what you do with the IRS, right? So we no longer set up any fake businesses with them, but it's a very simple process. All you have to do is click on Get Started, and then right here, you'll fill out your bank information if you haven't already, because if you've already signed up for online banking with QBO, it's already going to have this information. And then you're just going to enter your business's address and email address, phone number, and then you'll enter the owner's information like owner's social security number, things like that. So really basic stuff. Now, after that's all set up, we are then in the Payroll Tax Center right here. Oh, there we go. I guess we're not in the payroll tax center. We're in the we're back in the employee center. I'm going to go over here to taxes then. We'll go over to payroll tax. It used to take us into payroll tax first. Now, if you're using full service payroll, you won't see this screen at all because QuickBooks takes care of everything for you automatically. But if you're using enhanced, this is the screen from which you can pay your taxes and also file your taxes. We're going to come back here in a little bit whenever we eventually pay our employees and then pay our tax and file our taxes. But all of those things that I just set up earlier, I want to show you where you can edit them. Right here we have edit your e-file and e-pay setup. I'm going to click on that. And here we can change our e-file and e-pay settings. So if you didn't have that information whenever you first signed up, you can change it right here. Also, there's an area right here for edit your tax setup. So everything else that we filled out, like our company's information, state unemployment insurance rate, things like that, they can also be edited right through here. Just click on the header of whatever it is you want to edit. Like if maybe we get a different state unemployment insurance rate, we'll click on this header. And then from here, we can change or add new rates for any of these options that we have. There's also pay policies. So if your pay schedule ever changes, if your vacation and sick leave policies ever change, you can edit them here. You can also create new ones. We've also got deductions. So from here, you're only able to change the names of your deductions. I'll show you later on how you can change the actual amounts that are taken out of employees' paychecks. But yeah, right here, if you just edit them, you can just change the names of these deductions, contributions, and garnishments. Then we also have preferences. Now, from here, you can change your paycheck printing settings. This is really handy if you actually want QuickBooks to print paychecks for you. In fact, you have to go here if you want QuickBooks to print out paychecks for you, because this is where you tell QuickBooks that you want to use pre-printed QuickBooks compatible voucher check stock that you can get from Intuit, or it's also available from most banks and office supplies and things like that. Right here we have print to pay stubs or print one stub. So you actually do have to go in here and choose this option if you want QuickBooks to print out paychecks for you. Now, we also have the number of copies, whether or not you want the phone number on the pay stubs. That's required in New York. Then we have Form W-2 printing settings. This is where you tell QuickBooks whether you want to use plain paper or perforated paper for whenever you eventually print out your W-2s. You can choose between those options. We also have email preferences. QuickBooks emails you payday reminders, tax payment reminders, form filing reminders to make sure that you're always current. And then we also have group report settings. Now, whenever you run payroll, you're given a chance to export all of your relevant payroll reports onto an Excel workbook. And these are all of the payroll reports that are included on that workbook. You can run payroll reports anytime you want to, but the workbook that's given to you through Excel whenever you finish payroll has them all put together. Now, finally, there is this accounting preferences. QuickBooks knows automatically which expense accounts and liability accounts and asset accounts to use when categorizing payroll. But if you want to change any of the accounts on your chart of accounts that QuickBooks uses to categorize this information, you can click Customize. Now, I don't recommend this for most users. This is only for people who know very well what they're doing in terms of changing accounts in the chart of accounts and things like that. So be careful if you want to change anything on this screen. Now I'm going to go ahead and go back. We're going to cancel on this. And then I just want to show you that not only can you access that same information from your payroll tax area by clicking Edit Your Tax Setup, but you can also get to it by going to, there it is. Payroll settings right here under your company. It takes you into that same screen. So those are your payroll settings. You can access them anytime you want to. Now, for a lot of you, payroll is going to start by entering timesheets. And timesheets are entered by going up here to the Create menu and choosing either single time activity or weekly timesheets. Now you can enter time for your employees, or you can give your employees logins so they can enter time for themselves. Alternatively, you can use an app like T-Sheets. And T-Sheets is a great app that people can download onto their phones and their tablets, and they can log in and they can enter time, and then they can sync that time with QuickBooks Online as well. T-Sheets has some great benefits to it, like it has GPS tracking. It has the ability for you to go through and approve time as it's recorded by different employees and contractors that work for you. So T-Sheets is a great alternative to the timesheets that are in QuickBooks Online itself. You can check that out by clicking on Apps right over here. But you don't have to enter time. Even if your employees are hourly, you can enter the time that they work while you actually enter information about that payroll in particular. So whenever you want to run payroll, whether you've entered timesheets or not, all you have to do is go to Workers, Employees right here. And then up here at the top right, it's going to tell you when your next payroll is due. And then when it is, and when you're ready to run payroll, you can click on Run Payroll right here. So in this screen, if you have multiple payroll schedules, you're going to be asked which pay schedule you want to pay your employees for. We only have the one, so it's not giving us that option. We're going to include our bank account we're using, the pay period. You can change the pay period you're paying employees for, the pay date. And then right here we have our employee tells us how much money they make per hour. And over here we were able to include how many hours for each one of these different pay types. Now, if we had entered timesheets, or if we used T-sheets to sync time with QuickBooks Online, this information would have been entered for us. But since we didn't, we can still enter it manually, right? Like right here, I can enter 40 regular hours, no problem. And up here at the top right, notice that it shows me my employees' gross wages. So this is the amount of money they're making before taxes are withheld, and also before any other deductions and things like that. I'm going to go ahead and include some other information here. Now, I know that normally you wouldn't enter numbers into all of these different fields, but I want to show you just the effects of all of them to show you that QuickBooks uses all of these to calculate the gross wages. And if you want to see the specifics about these gross wages, you can scroll over here to the right. Notice that there's a little pencil. If you click on that, it's going to take you into a screen to show you the different rates and how they're affecting the overall pay of the employee, as well as the net pay that the employee will actually be paid. Then scrolling down, there's also employee taxes, there's the employee deductions, there's employer taxes, and down here at the very bottom, there's also information about vacation that they're using or sick leave they're using. So you can go through, this is not required, but you can go through here and you can look at the information before you actually run payroll. We're going to preview the payroll. Here's the information screen that's going to tell us about the total payroll cost. Now, that's not the amount of money we're paying them for. The employee is going to receive a payment of $993.46. We're holding back $356 of their pay, and we are going to be assessed $149.18 for taxes. And so that money is going to be deposited separately with the government. Here we see Robert England, all of their net pay. Click on Submit Payroll. And if you're using direct deposit, it's going to take 24 hours for that direct deposit to be made. Or if you're using full service payroll, it'll be made that same day. Right here, we also have, oh, I'm very likely. Oh, there we go. Okay, perfect. So right here, we also have information about the employee's paycheck. So we can include the paycheck number, or we can also have QuickBooks print that paycheck or pay stub. Now, a lot of people ask, is it possible to email pay stubs to employees? And the answer is that there is no way for you to email pay stubs, but you can use a service called View My Paycheck that essentially gives your employees online access to a place where they can look at their pay stubs through a website. It's free, it doesn't cost you anything, it doesn't cost them anything either. And you can sign up an employee for that by clicking on their name right here. And here in this screen, we are given a couple of different options for making edits to an employee, like their pay, some miscellaneous information about them on their profile, and also employment information. So if an employee's pay ever changes, just click on the pencil right here. And from here, you can edit anything about them, like their pay, their deductions. Remember, the pencils are always for editing. You can also go over to Profile. And then from here, you can enter their email address. And whenever you click on Done, they'll get an invitation to View My Paycheck. View My Paycheck allows the employee to log in to View My Paycheck. They can see their pay stubs there, and they can also see their W-2s there whenever those are issued as well. Now, there's also one final little spot over here under Employment. If you click on the pencil for Employment, you can also enter an employee ID. And if the payment status of the employee ever changes, you can click the drop-down arrow right here and change it. And there's also a section right here for work locations. So if you have multiple work locations, you can enter those here as well. And QuickBooks can figure out the different withholdings for different states too. Now, I want to show you a place where you can run reports for payroll. So clicking on reports then takes us to the report center. If we go down to the very bottom, there are payroll reports right here. Now, there are a couple of payroll reports that are important to have around just because they tend to be needed more often than others. Like, for instance, let's see, vacation and sick leave. You know, that's something that employees often ask about, how much time they have off. You can click on this link, and it'll show you exactly how many hours each employee has used and how much they have available right here. Used this year versus current available for Robert. So, and it also shows the vacation policy. So tons of great reports here. There's also a total cost report that shows there's the total pay, there's the total payroll cost. So some great information right here too. Now, there are also some payroll tax liability reports and payment reports and things like that. But if we want to see payroll taxes, we can go over to payroll tax. And from here, we can tell QuickBooks to send tax payments to the IRS directly from QuickBooks if you're using ePay. Or you can tell QuickBooks about payments for taxes that you've made outside QuickBooks at the EFTPS website if you've chosen to not use ePay. So from here, I'm going to go ahead and click on Pay Taxes. Now, you only have to do this if you're using the enhanced version. If you're using full service payroll, QuickBooks just does this for you automatically. You don't have to go through this process. But from here, right here, we can choose the tax that we're paying, like federal tax 941, 944. This is for us, monthly deposit that we make. So we chose that earlier. And then we'll choose a record payment method. Now, QuickBooks warns you if you're paying anything ahead of time. So it has your back if you're making any sort of rash decisions. Again, QuickBooks will send you emails letting you know when you need to do this. Apparently, we don't need to do it just yet, but I'm going to click OK anyway because I want to show you how this process happens. There we go. It'll load up. Here's the screen where we tell QuickBooks about tax payments, or if we're using ePay, we actually make the payments directly through here. Up at the top, we're going to see a warning message telling us not to do this. Because again, QuickBooks has our back, lets us know if we're doing anything rash or wrong. But in order for me to file my my tax forms, I have to do this. So I have to show you the process. So we've got the liability period, the bank account that was used to pay it, payment date, and right here it has all the amounts that are due. I click on record payment, and if we're using ePay, you're done. But if you're not using ePay, it's going to give you this message right here, which are instructions on logging into the EFTPS website and making a payment outside of QuickBooks at the IRS's website. Now I'm going to go ahead and skip that. So our payment has been made. QuickBooks no longer thinks that we owe any money for the 941, 944 monthly payment. And that process, that's all it takes for that process. Now, in terms of filing taxes, you can also do that through QuickBooks. Just click on the quarterly tax forms or the annual forms depending upon what you need to file. The quarterly tax forms are going to be your 941s. If you file those, most people do. And also any state forms that are quarterly too. It's going to vary greatly by state. We're going to go look at the 941. 941 is basically just a summary of how much money you've paid your employees and also how much money you've collected in terms of withholdings and also the totals of all of your deposits that you've made with the government over that time each quarter. So right here, we've got the period that we're filing. Now, of course, we're not ready to file this just yet. We would normally file this in January because it's the current quarter, which doesn't end until the end of the year. But I'm going to go ahead and look at it and click on View. And if it's ready to file, there will also be an e-file button in that previous screen. So this is our 941. We can look it over. Notice that it's filled in a lot of these numbers for us based upon the payroll that we just ran. So QuickBooks keeps track of all this money for you. It automatically enters this information for you. There's nothing special you have to fill out. It just keeps a tally behind the scenes. Now, if you're doing this manually and actually mailing it out, it's going to give you instructions on how to mail that out. Or if you're using e-file, it'll just have a button over here that you can click to send that tax filing out. There's also a place where you can look at your annual forms like W-2s and 940s. It's the same exact process for all of these. Just click on the one that you want to file over here on the right. There are also employee setup forms that you can get. So if you want to download, say, a Texas new hire form or whatever state you're in, bank verification form so you can collect the account number and routing number for direct deposit for your employees. You can print this out. You can have it on hand. hand it over to new employees. That way you'll have a way to gather this information, fill out the direct deposit forms. And so we've got all these different employee setup forms, and there are also finally some employer setup forms. Now, most of you will have already filled these out, like the SS4 is where you get your federal EIN. And we've also got unemployment insurance registration. That's how your state is going to figure out your unemployment insurance rates. Now, let's talk about one last thing. We talked about paying taxes. Let's talk about non-tax liabilities. So earlier, whenever we paid our employee, we also took out $50 for good health insurance. This is not a tax. This is us taking money out so that we can pay the health insurance provider. So we're not going to be paying them through the taxes here, right here. Instead, we're going to be entering this transaction up here from the Create menu. This is going to be an expense check or a bill. It's a bill if the insurance provider sends us a bill telling us how much money is owed and when we need to pay it later on. It's a check if there's no bill involved and we just send a check off to them, like a physical check. It's an expense if there's no bill involved and we just simply transfer the money to them through an ACH or a debit card or a credit card or something like that. Usually this is going to be a bill because usually they tell you ahead of time how much money is due and when it's due. Now right here for the vendor, we'll choose Good Health Insurance. Set them up as a new vendor. We're going to say that this vendor gives us terms of net 15. So we need to pay this by November 1st. And then down here for the account, this is the trick. I'm going to go ahead and put in payroll liabilities. And notice that there is a Good Health Insurance sub-account underneath payroll liabilities. I'm going to choose that one. This is for the November insurance premiums. And we've collected $50. Now, sometimes on top of the premiums, you'll also need to pay some administrative costs or other fees that are incurred by your business. So these are outside of the amount of money that you've deducted from employees' paychecks. If that's the case, you can add an additional line, which is going to be something like administrative fees. And usually this is set up as an expense type account. And for the detail type, we're going to go ahead and put in office and general administrative expenses. And then we'll say that the business pays $10.95 for those administrative fees. We'll also enter the bill number. Usually you'll find that up at the top left or the top right of the bill as you receive it from your vendor. I'm going to save and close on this. And now we can see that the payroll liabilities has gone down to 0, and that got transferred over to accounts payable. And that's payroll in a nutshell.